Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 894 for the 23rd of November 2025. Richard Saunders coming to you from a soggy, thunderstormy Sydney, Australia. Yes, I woke up to the sound of thunder. Looking outside the window, the rain has stopped for the moment. Before we start, a shout out to my friend and the Secretary of Australian Skeptics, Lara Benham. Lara and I yesterday went to a cut price, not a maximum size, but a mini size Mind Body Wallet Day fair. Oh, I think it's all weekend at a nearby suburb in a leagues club, like a general sort of a big building with restaurants and function rooms and things like that. And we saw interesting, nice art forms made out of stones and crystals and things and other clothing and whatnot. And there was a small area put aside for psychic readings and whatnot. But one of the little stalls on display, there was a weird sort of frame of a wooden pyramid. And this is by one business called Awakening Retreat. And one Mel Blundell, who is, according to her card, psychic intuitive, healer, medium, Psych-K registered facilitator. Sounds interesting. Specializing in emotional healing chords. What's that, like F-sharp minor or something? Past life integration, chakra rebalancing, empath tips, belief deprogramming, and more. Chakra rebalancing. I'd like to see that. A light worker activating with your next steps forward. Ask for your priority messages. If you want to check out more, head to awakeningretreat.live. But I always think it's a good idea to check out these mystic fairs. I think the most impressive thing was the stamp they gave us. You know how you go to some events sometimes and they say, hold out your wrist, and they go, bonk, and there's a little stamp on your hand or your wrist, just so you can show them that you've paid and you can go back again. Well, the one they gave me yesterday has 3 crystals and some stars. It's about the size of an Australian dollar coin, a bit larger than an American quarter, and it's still sharp and fresh the next morning. I'm considering going back just to ask them what sort of ink and stamp they use. So many times when you get one of these, they smear. This one is very fest. Is that the right word? It's steadfast. It's very impressive. There you go. You learned something even at a Mind Body Wallet mini festival. That's enough waffle. What's coming up on today's episode of the Skeptic Zone? What an important Skeptic Zone we have for you today. We interview Dr Siouxsie Wiles from New Zealand, and a couple of years ago she was New Zealander of the Year. Now this is a hark back to the days of the think tank on the Skeptic Zone. Listeners who were listening in the early days will remember the think tank. Well, today the think tank comprises of Cat McLeod, Adrienne Hill, Kate Thomas, and Lara Benham. And the think tank crew interview Dr Siouxsie Wiles. Now, if you haven't heard about her, she's worth investigating. She is the microbiologist in the forefront of information, good information and sound advice when COVID-19 hit New Zealand. And she has been paying the price ever since. The nutters, the cookers, the loonies, the anti-vax crowd, the conspiracy theorists ganged up on her and made her life awful. And if you want to find out about that, go to this week's show notes at skepticzone.tv and you'll find a link to a documentary called Misinformation about what Siouxsie had to deal with. And subsequently, she's been dealing with even more, including a court case. A very important think tank. And I urge you to support Dr. Siouxsie, and I urge you to look at the documentary. It's a fascinating look into the vacuous minds of the cookers, those people who have cooked their brains on conspiracy theories and self-righteous anger. Following that, it's Woo Watch with Kate Thomas. And this week, Kate is questioning the qualifications of naturopaths here in Australia. And I think this was inspired by all the naturopaths you see on social media giving, not giving medical advice. They say, well, this isn't medical advice, but, and then they proceed to give medical advice. Anyway, following that, it's Adrienne Hill with this week's newsletter written by news editor D at Skeptic Central. And then to round off the show, we have the TROVE Archives looking at that great classic bit of quackery, Reflexology. Reflexology? My foot. So no matter what you're doing today, even if you're not feeling that great, you know, sometimes you wake up with a bit of a sore head and you just want to go back to bed. It's not a bad idea. Or if you're out and about, if you're driving your car or your truck, or you're in the train commuting to work, on the bus, maybe you're walking the dog or jogging. Great to have you listening to the Skeptic Zone. But now it's time for me to run downstairs and finish off a dish I made the other night because I was mindlessly looking at TikTok. Actually, I was gathering information, I promise. And I found a recipe for chicken pasta and cheese bake, which I tried, and it worked the first time. Anyway, I'm going to run downstairs, finish that off, and while I do that, I hope you enjoy this week's episode of The Skeptic Zone.
Join us now for Drinking Skeptically in the Think Tank.
Welcome to the Think Tank. This is Adrienne Hill from Calgary, Canada in Skookum Studios. And today I have a very special guest and a panel to introduce you to. Now, starting with the panel, we have Skeptic Zone reporters, Kat McLeod.
Hello.
Kate Thomas.
Hi, everyone.
And we also have the Secretary of the Australian Skeptics, Lara Benham.
Hi, nice to be here.
And our special guest today is someone whose work I've been following for quite a while, and I'm very excited to have her here. Welcome, Siouxsie Wiles.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
To start off, can you just tell us a little bit about your background for those people who aren't familiar with your work?
Sure. So I'm a microbiologist and science communicator. Been interested in science and skepticism for a very long time. Been involved in New Zealand Skeptics and was Skeptic of the Year one year.
Ooh,
which was a wonderful honour. We're a small place. There's not many of us. But anyway. So as a microbiologist, my background is in infectious diseases. And so over the years, I've become in New Zealand, I guess, one of the go-to microbiologists whenever there's a sort of microbiology related or infectious disease related story in the news. So, I don't know, Ebola, Zika, all of those. And then when COVID arrived, I became basically one of the people who helped New Zealand understand what was happening to us. And I guess for most people, that's where my story starts. And I actually, one of the things that I did during the pandemic was quite early on, I teamed up with this really amazing cartoonist called Toby Morris. And we made these cartoons about COVID that sort of spread all over the world and ended up being used actually in Canada and Australia and all sorts of places. So if you heard the phrase flatten the curve, it was probably thanks to one of our graphics. So you might not know me, but you probably saw the work that I did all those years ago.
So, Siouxsie, I understand that being an advocate for vaccination and speaking out about how to protect yourself against COVID-19 had a bit of backlash for you. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, so essentially, like most scientists and science communicators during the pandemic, we received a lot of love, but we received a lot of hate as well. And for me, I did my first interview about COVID in very early or mid-January, maybe, and it wasn't long before I started getting harassed and abused on social media, and then in my emails, and then it just became, just this tsunami, I guess, of abuse and harassment that has led to me being on this Nuremberg 2.0 list. If you don't know about that, there's a list that people have put together of people that they would like prosecuted and executed for crimes against humanity for their work during the pandemic. And at one point
That is horrific.
It is horrific.
Yes. Yeah. And at one point, I was the highest non-governmental person on that list in New Zealand. So, yeah, it's, and people send me nooses and various other things. So it's been pretty awful and pretty relentless, really. And it's just, I guess, my life now, really. Yeah, I've been experiencing this since early 2020, and it hasn't really gone away. If I lift my head up, then, this very small group of people who really sort of live now in an alternate reality kind of come back up going, why isn't she being prosecuted? And, hang her and stuff like that.
That's absolutely dreadful. And I understand that you work at the University of Auckland.
I do.
Did you get a lot of support from your coworkers?
Oh, a lot of support from my coworkers, but things with my employer didn't work out quite so well. So I think it's quite important, actually, that you get a little bit of background context to this. So I think it was about 2017, there were some women academics at the university who were receiving emails and phone calls basically threatening them with sexual violence and death. The university had never sort of encountered this before. And so these women got together and sort of called a meeting with the vice chancellor and, basically explained the impact that this was having, and the fact that, when they contacted people in positions of authority, nobody really knew what to do. And so that led to what they called the Gender-Based Harassment Working Group, which then came up with a whole bunch of policies, and this group called the Staff Risk Intervention Team, that were basically supposed to be like this one-stop shop. So if somebody was being harassed a staff member being harassed by someone outside the university, this was the place to go, and it had representatives from HR and from IT and from security, and they would look after you.
That sounds very positive.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So when I started being harassed in early 2020, and actually it was a colleague of mine who was like, hey, remember that email we all got from the vice chancellor in 2018 telling us about this thing? We should get in touch with this group. And so we did. Oh, and then that was just the start of the most crazy few years where it turned out this group and these policies were completely unfit for purpose. And what essentially we encountered was a group, and I guess it wasn't all people within this group, because actually I know that there were some who tried really hard to support me, but essentially we had the people who were in positions of power and decision-making decided that online harassment was my own fault for using social media, and that basically if I just stopped communicating or stopped using social media, it would go away. Basically, they were busy, and I should just sort of suck it, really. My colleagues and I sort of started pushing back and saying, no, one of the big issues I think was that they did not see at all that online violence could turn into real world violence. They didn't see it as a thing that was harmful, and they didn't see it as it might turn into real world violence. This is in New Zealand when we had the mosque attack. We'd had somebody who was radicalized online,
yes,
and then attacked and killed over 50 people. So, we had a really stark example not that long before of how this violence can become, real world. Because the harassment was escalating, it ended up with me being doxxed. So all my personal details were put on the internet, and there were videos of people saying, here's where she lives, go and get her, which was actually a little bit alarming, because while they gave my address, they gave a picture of our neighbor's house. And I was quite concerned that people might go and attack my neighbor's house rather than my own house. Not that I wanted my house being attacked either.
Oh, my goodness.
It had
it's horrifying.
It was. And, my personal phone number. So I was getting horrendous voice messages from people and stuff. And then it culminated in an interaction with some of our kind of top COVID conspiracy people, where it was a completely chanced encounter. I was visiting Wellington for work, staying at a quite nice hotel, and so were they. Mm-hmm. And so they started live streaming and filming me over breakfast, and it was just awful. Basically telling people to come and get me, and it was like sitting next to a paedophile and all this kind of stuff. We tried getting support from the university for well over a year, and really when we ran out of options to try, we filed personal grievances. All these policies were put in place under our previous Vice-Chancellor. And then in March 2020, we got a new Vice-Chancellor. And so we tried to meet with her, but she wouldn't meet with us. And so, we've put these personal grievances in that basically said, we've lost confidence with the people that you've put in charge of this. Like, will you see us? Can we fix this? Mm-hmm. But she rejected those. And then that meant really the only place left to go was kind of the legal route. And we asked for mediation as well. We asked for specialist mediation. And the university refused the specialist mediation. Our mediation failed. And then this Employment Relations Authority basically said, we agree with you. This should be heard by the employment court, and they gave us permission to move straight to the employment court. And then it basically, we had another 2 failed mediations, and then we had a 3-week hearing in the employment court in late 2023. The judge gave her ruling in mid 2024. I won. Yay! Not on every point, but on the majority of points. And unfortunately, in New Zealand, the sort of damages and stuff are pretty poor. So I got awarded $20,000 in damages, and then the judge left us to negotiate costs. So essentially, the winning party gets a contribution to their costs. They weren't interested in negotiating over costs, and so we had to go back to the judge. And that was all resolved just a few months ago. And basically, the university were told to pay me $205,000 towards my costs. Who thinks that you're going to have to take your employer to court over something as ridiculous as their policies being fit for purpose? It's just been a bit of a shocker, really.
I guess my question was why you even pursued it. It just seemed like such a mountain for you to climb. Like, what was the motivation to keep pushing and to keep pushing when it must have just at some point seemed like it was just going to be impossible and too costly in terms of money and also emotional and also all of that, I think was my question.
So it was partly because if a university is going to have policies, they've got to be fit for purpose. And what I was experiencing, harassment around anti-vax and all that kind of stuff. It's not the only thing that an academic's going to be harassed for, right? But we have Indigenous scholars who are being harassed about, by racists. We have like all sorts of stuff. And so I felt like if they could fix the policies for me, they would fix them for all staff. And they should do that. And this was the only way that I could do that. And I was just determined not to let them use their deep pockets to get them out of this. Like the way they responded to me was just so offensive that rather than fix their policies, they chose to fight me all the way to employment court. That I just thought, you can't get away with this. And so I'm quite belligerent when I get my teeth into something. I was in a position to do something about it. Like we could afford it, right? We could take on the extra loans. We could do it. Not many people would be in that privileged position. And so if we couldn't do it, then who could? And I just felt so determined that we weren't going to let them get away with it.
And I was going to say, it's a wonderful answer because, I mean, we need people in the world with belligerence to stand up. Well, we do, though, because otherwise, as you say, these massive institutions just get away with being more tenacious and having deeper pockets, as you said. I guess I was just so in awe of the endurance that it must have cost you.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you're going through at the moment?
One of the things that's been really kind of amazing, I guess, since it became public that I was taking legal action was that lots of people said, how can we support you? Can we contribute to your legal fund? And there wasn't really anything that people could do at the time. I just had to go it alone, which was quite an undertaking, actually. It's ended up costing my husband and I oh gosh, well over 600,000 New Zealand dollars to see this action all the way from the Employment Relations Authority right through to the negotiations over costs and things. And that's not something that most people can do, actually. And it was very interesting when it became public that I was taking legal action. Quite a lot of people got in touch saying, "Oh, I really hope you can go the distance." And it was either like, "Oh, I tried this and I had to give up because I ran out of money." It turns out that this organizations with deep pockets, they use those deep pockets to try and get themselves out of having to go to court. But they definitely underestimated me and my husband. We remortgaged our house. Yeah, we remortgaged our house. We got
huge consequences. Yeah, so we ended up in quite a bit of debt, and then we essentially got a fairly good, probably as much as we could have expected the judge to award in costs. So that's left us with a $400,000 hole in our finances. So I remembered people saying, "Oh, how can we help?" And so various people encouraged me to start a crowdfunding campaign. And so that's been going for 2 weeks. It's just been amazing. It's been just sort of like outpouring of support and loveliness. Crowdfunding, it's one of these all or nothing. So you have to meet your
target goal.
Yeah, you got to meet your target to get the money. So we set the target really low, like $10,000, and like smashed that within a few hours. It's now sitting at like over 175,000 New Zealand dollars. It's been absolutely
177 at the moment. Yeah,
that's
amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But you're still over a third of the cost is still outstanding, right? So if listeners want to help, how can they look at this crowdfunder?
So basically there's a website called Pledge Me in New Zealand, and basically it's something like support Dr. Siouxsie as she supported us. What I will say now is that I've actually switched it up, and I've put myself a little stretch goal that actually from now, any money that people donate is going to go to a research project. That is the thing that is my, like, what I want to do. I don't want any extra money. I just want money to do research. And I've just had 3 grant rejections this month for this particular project, the most recent one today. And so any money we get from now basically is going to go to this project. And it's all about looking at the safety of menstrual cups. So it's just been
that's good.
Absolutely.
That's an important thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Something you'd think people would want to research, but no.
You would hope that it had already been researched. Like I was, when I read that.
Turns out, it turns out there's not been that many studies done.
No.
So I'm not saying that they are unsafe. I'm just saying that there's very little evidence. So can we science it, please? And that's the thing that I'm doing. So being a COVID communicator has completely changed my life. It's changed my interactions outside of my house. It's changed how I feel about living in New Zealand. And that stuff hasn't gone away. It's one of the reasons why Jacinda Ardern lives overseas. She, it's not safe for her to live in New Zealand because there are these people who want us dead. And so, it was
I didn't know that.
Sad.
Yeah.
I know there's people in the minority. And so what's been great about the crowdfunder has been this just outpouring of support from people. It's just been lovely.
I just wanted to say something about the crowdfunder, just in case people are unaware, because I've supported similar things in the past, but I've never used this particular website, the pledgeme.co.nz. To me, it's unusual. There's a whole list of rewards. But I think it's important because you've got a lot of stuff on there that involve other people. So I'm guessing other people have been like, hey, I can't support you financially, but I can give you this to use as rewards on this. And they're really good. They're good. It's good stuff.
Because if you give us anything, you're going to get a copy of some books, some ebooks that my colleagues and I have written. So one's about science being sexist. Mine's about antibiotic resistance. Sean Hendy wrote a book called Silencing Science, which is all about, the efforts to silence scientists. So there's things that people are getting in return, which is typical. It's been a really nice way to do it, I think, for to do it that way instead of just, hey, give me your money. It's like you get something in return. Although I must say, I did so for $100, I would do a personalized thank you video. There are over 2,000 people who've pledged. I don't know how many people have asked for a video. It might take me a while.
Should have put a limit on that one.
Yeah, I should have done.
That's amazing. That's wonderful, though. It's wonderful, wonderful news. And, I think we really admire your work. And I want to congratulate you on your efforts especially because it is a landmark case that has gone through in your favor. We would like, the Skeptic Zone would like to show you a token of our appreciation, and we're going to be sending you a new headset microphone for future media and podcasts. Thank you, Richard.
And all those thank you videos.
Yes, and it should help with all those thank you videos. That's kind of what made me think of it. So hopefully that will be helpful. And also,
thank you.
If you want to donate, Richard is going to be putting the link to the site in the show notes. So it should be easy to find. And if you are a listener from the United States, just so you know, $1 right now is about $1.76 New Zealand. So it's almost double the value. So please do consider donating to this amazing woman to help her out of this horrifying debt.
And help with her research. So we have to keep standing up. We have to keep saying, no, here's the science. Here's why it's important. And support people who do that. So kudos to you.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, my wonderful panel here, and especially Siouxsie for joining us today for this discussion. And until next time, this is Adrienne Hill from Skookum Studios in Calgary, Canada. So, Siouxsie, you have to tell me a little bit about that, those cartoons that you guys made.
I think one of the funniest things about them actually was that we ended up depicting the virus as pink. And so for those who don't know, I've got really pink hair. And somebody asked the cartoonist, like, hey, so why did you pick pink to depict the virus? And he said he was just looking for like another color that was sort of, like a sort of high contrast or something. And it was like, possibly a little bit of subliminal messaging going on.
Well, it certainly has always been a signature. Is that good?
Yeah,
Wonderful.
I'm known as the haired COVID lady.
Wacky woo that's worth watching. It's Woo Watch with Kate Thomas.
Hello folks, I'm Kate, and this week's Woo of the Week is the illusion of regulation and naturopath degrees. And when I say degrees, I'm using that word quite wrongly. Naturopaths use words like qualified, trained, degree educated, even practitioner. If you've ever wondered how someone with a 3-hour online certificate ends up giving oncology advice or autism detox protocols, the answer is they can because no one is stopping them. In Australia, the term naturopath is completely unregulated, and the public genuinely do not know this. I realised this firsthand, and we'll get to that later. But first, let's explain the landscape. Anyone can call themselves a naturopath today. It isn't a protected title. No national or minimum training standards are required. There's no standardised curriculum, no limitations on what they can claim to treat, no national complaints process, no mandatory CPD, no oversight. AHPRA registers Chinese medical practitioners, but not naturopaths. Why? This is not an oversight. It's not because AHPRA hasn't caught up, and it's not because the wellness industry is growing too fast. AHPRA has actually reviewed naturopathy multiple times and decided not to regulate it. Why? AHPRA only registers professionals that meet 3 criteria. First, a clearly defined evidence-based scope of practice. Naturopathy has no unified national curriculum, no standardised competencies, no agreed scope, no evidence-based diagnostic framework, wildly inconsistent training. AHPRA literally cannot regulate a profession that can't define what it does. Secondly, a recognised ability to impact patient safety. AHPRA regulates professions who diagnose medical conditions, prescribe medicines, perform invasive procedures, make clinical decisions with real risk, and require national accountability. Naturopaths are not recognised as providing clinical care, so AHPRA has no regulatory basis. Thirdly, they must meet strict national law criteria. This includes an independent accreditation authority, standardised training, consistent clinical placement requirements, evidence that regulation improves safety. Naturopathy fails all three. If naturopaths were providing actual clinical care, they'd be regulated. They're not, and that's the point. But Kate, my naturopath has a degree, I hear you say. Well, I don't hear our skeptic audience say this, but you get my drift. Naturopathic degrees can be anything from a Bachelor of Health Science to diplomas in naturopathy, natural health and homeopathy, to online certificates and short courses you can complete between dinner and dessert. Think gut health coach, master herbalist, detox consultant, the list goes on. Naturopathy has no accreditation, no national standards, no defined scope, no registration, no protected title, no standardised education, no complaints process, no accountability. A Bachelor of Health Science, naturopathy, does not create a recognised health professional. The public confuses them with actual health professionals, and this is the part that worries me. A few weeks ago, I did a debunking video on a naturopath claiming that it is super common for a woman to get sick in their luteal phase, and I simply asked for the receipts. You know, basic evidence. The pushback was wild. Comment after comment saying health professionals don't put down other health professionals. And that's when it hit me. The general public genuinely see naturopaths as equivalent to doctors, pharmacists, dietitians, physiotherapists, nurses, etc., you know, legitimate regulated health professionals. They do not understand that naturopaths are not AHPRA registered. They do not understand that anyone can call themselves a naturopath. They do not understand that there are no minimum standards, no accountability, and no scope of practice. This confusion is part of the problem, and the wellness industry knows it. Let's discuss scope creep and professional boundaries. For example, I have seen videos on the socials from naturopaths talking about oncology treatments. Here's the treatment option your oncologist doesn't want you to know about. Now, there are a number of issues here, chief among which is the fact that there is no secret naturopathy-only oncology science. If there were a credible cancer treatment or even a supportive therapy that actually helped patients, your oncologist would know about it and you wouldn't be hearing about it for the first time from a naturopath. Another example is autism treatments promoted by naturopaths. These include chelation, detoxes, parasite cleansers, heal the gut, heal the brain, mold detoxification, yeast eradication, restrictive diets without medical need, to name just a few. Autism is neurodevelopmental, not toxological, not parasitic, not caused by poor detoxification. These naturopathic remedies not only cost money, but they shift the blame of the sickness onto the parent, as if this wouldn't be happening if only you had managed your heavy metals better. Not to mention, it delays getting access to qualified gold standard treatment. And there is a conflict of interest here. Naturopaths can recommend products and financially benefit from the recommendation. They can diagnose imbalances, prescribe supplements, sell the exact products they prescribe, mark them up, earn commissions, access practitioner-only brands, run affiliate programs. There's a direct financial incentive to find toxins, parasites, mold, hormone imbalances, gut issues, adrenal fatigue, because every diagnosis leads to sales. Why does it matter? The combination of no regulation, no standardized training, no scope of practice limits, the ability to diagnose fake illnesses, the ability to sell the treatment, and zero accountability creates real, measurable harm, financial, psychological, and medical. As someone who has worked in an industry for 25 years that is highly regulated, as it should be, I find this naturalistic fallacy curious. Healthcare isn't about whether something grows in a forest or comes from a lab. It's about evidence, regulation, and outcomes. Natural doesn't mean harmless. Evidence is what keeps people safe. I'm Kate, and you can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Prescribe or Pass.
Hello everyone, this is Adrienne Hill from Skookum Studios in Calgary, Canada, and I'm here to read the highlights from the Australian Skeptics newsletter. This is newsletter number 235. Now don't forget you can sign up to this newsletter at skeptics.com.au and get the full report complete with all the links every other week right into your inbox. But let's see what our news editor, Dee, has for us this time. Hi all, says Dee. The news this fortnight has been a mix of the positive and negative. Primarily, though, there has been much said by local Australian publishers on how we are handling various pseudoscientific and pseudo-intellectual phenomena, AI, politics, climate change, and psychic scammers. A Pint of Science has released some information about their 2026 festival. Hosted yearly in 12 cities across Australia, we feel it is a great gala event to promote scientific thinking and logical reasoning. We'd also like to promote the work of our previous editor, Tim Mendham, recently featured in the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age in an article by Liam Mannix, reflecting on the current state of skeptical attitudes. It may be behind a paywall, but the full article is available online or in print. In the meantime, read on, D. Okay, D, I'll do just that. Sydney fortune teller arraigned for scamming Vietnamese community for $70 million. Police allege a 53-year-old woman claiming to be a fortune teller defrauded Sydney's Vietnamese community of 70 million Australian dollars. Anya Phan is part of one of the largest financial crime syndicates in Australian history. Dave Farina and Dr. Dan Wilson, demolishing anti-vaccine frauds. And yes, I have watched this. I highly recommend it, though it is a tad frustrating. A speaker from our last Skepticon in Melbourne this year, Dave Farina, from the US, debated two full-time anti-vaxxers on Debunk the Funk recently. This was a rather spirited argument if any are interested in examining the full experience with commentary. And that's the best way to watch it for sure. Ayurveda, India's alternative naturopathy. And something I've discussed with Abhijit a few times on this show. India's traditional alternative medicine practice continues to cause harm by way of actively recommending treatments and supplements which induce heavy metal poisoning, among other liver-damaging contaminants. Bogus claim of millions of Australian deaths linked to vaccines. Distorted population and migration statistics are being used to insinuate that nearly a tenth of Australia's population fell to vaccine-related causes since their introduction. This is a concerning discourse to have. A group of political malcontents are wielding any excuse or phony statistics to push ideologies of anti-immigration and anti-vaccine conspiracy. Study shows safety and efficacy of RSV, flu, and COVID vaccines. In case you needed a more feel-good story on immunization, reaffirmation on the safety and efficacy of viral vaccines has shown many of the positive benefits we already knew about, and also some new discoveries. Vaccine immunity has a slight edge on effectiveness over typical immunity from a genuine infection. Surprise, surprise! Tylenol used during pregnancy proven not linked to autism or ADHD. Contradicting claims by U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his followers that using Tylenol, which is paracetamol or acetaminophen, during pregnancy causes autism, a new systematic review says that they aren't linked. Once again, real science surpasses the flimsy evidence used by RFK Jr. Same goes for ADHD, apparently. Canada loses measles-free status. Well, this certainly frosts my cookie. International health experts have declared Canada is no longer measles-free amid ongoing outbreaks as childhood vaccination rates fall and the highly contagious virus spreads across Canada, with 5,138 measles cases logged this year. And I'm going to talk more about this at the end of the newsletter, so stay tuned. Items of interest. Travel tips. Michigan's Keweenaw Peninsula is a hotspot for big feet. In the continuing trend of Bigfoot conventions, last weekend the Michiganian town of Calumet hosted their Bigfoot Fest. With the frequency of these celebrations and how widespread they are, you'd wonder if Mr. Foot has to walk all across the continental U.S. to attend. Superfluous starlet. Demi Moore states something definitely happened at Roswell in 1947. Yes, that's just what we really need, is more people giving opinions of events nearly 15 years prior to their birth. Demi Moore is convinced that not only are extraterrestrials real, the well-proved Roswell, New Mexican hoax was a cover-up for the real deal. Well, there you go. Silly story of the week. Every fifth Russian believes the sun revolves around the Earth. In a concerning trend of falling rates in heliocentrism, pseudoscientific beliefs have gripped the Russian people. Similarly, in the same survey, belief in sorcerers and dinosaurs living with humans is allegedly rife. Dope. Story of the week. Kim Kardashian is livid. Psychics told her she'd pass the bar exam. Obviously, the only thing you need to pass the bar exam and become a lawyer is to ask your local psychic soothsayer. Sadly, in this case, Kim was misled into thinking she could make a career change from public figure to public defender. But it's okay. Another psychic has predicted she'll pass next year. And people would want this person to defend them in court? If you are in Sydney on the 4th of December, don't forget to go to Skeptics in the Pub at 6 p.m. for the live recording of the Why Smart Woman Zone podcast with Annie McCubbin and Richard Saunders and guest. More details at meetup.com/AUST Skeptics. Well, that's all for this week's newsletter. And I just want to expand upon the issue of Canada losing its measles-free status. As an Albertan, I am truly disappointed how this has been handled. When the outbreak started and cases were starting to show up in Calgary, I consulted my family doctor about whether I needed the shot. She said it would be a good idea since I was only immunized as a child and I had recently become a grandparent. In the recent past, all vaccinations that I have sought could be easily accessed either from our family doctor, a pharmacist, or through Alberta Health. And suddenly, the only way for an adult to get the MMR vaccine, as well as the COVID vaccine, was to phone a number and be questioned about your need. My health issues were not enough for me to qualify. The fact that I had a grandson who was under a year old and couldn't be vaccinated until that birthday wasn't enough. But the person at the other end knew the system and asked me if I would be traveling in the near future. I got the hint and said yes, despite having travel plans that were actually a few months away, which was my definition of the near future. My grandson was able to get an early, though less effective vaccine the same way. My kids were, quote, traveling in the near future, end quote. How ridiculous that we had to lie to get a vaccine that would protect not only us, but those that are vulnerable, like my grandson. Making getting the vaccine so difficult, I believe, was a contributing factor to the spread of this highly contagious disease, as well as, of course, the growth of the anti-vaccine movement in this province, as well as other places in Canada. To quote a CBC article that was titled, "Alberta's Role in Canada's Loss of Measles Elimination Status Embarrassing," former Chief Medical Officer says, Dr. James Talbot, a former Chief Medical Officer of Health for Alberta, said, quote, "My gut reaction is sadness. A lot of people worked for a long time to achieve that measles elimination status, and to lose it in 1 year because of a failure of government action for a disease that's totally preventable, it just makes me sad," end quote. So in the article, it also quoted Talbot as saying, quote, "Pointing to the 1,956 cases Alberta has reported since its outbreak began in March, Alberta bears a significant amount of responsibility for Canada losing its elimination status," end quote. Well, that was depressing. And just to lighten things up before I sign off, I thought I'd just tell you a really bad joke. I think Richard might like it. Why do ghosts hate the Alberta winters? Well, because when they say boo, they can't tell if people are frightened or shivering because of the cold. Not sure if that's any good. Now it's time for a double-double and a nap on my Chesterfield. Until next time, this is Adrienne Hill from Skookum Studios signing off.
Now it's time once again to dive back into those archives, no matter where they are around the world. Well, in effect, they're all in the palm of your hand when we talk about online digital resources of digitised newspapers. And this week we'll be looking at an alternative health modality we've looked at before some years back, reflexology. Now, reflexology is one of the various types of notions that rely on something called zone therapy. That is, parts of the body are divided into zones, and these zones represent other parts of the body. The classic of that, of course, is iridology, where some people believe that parts of the eye, the iris is divided into various zones, sort of like a clock face. And each of these areas or zones relate to another organ or part of the body, and by peering into the eye, you can have a look at the coloration or the patterns and decide whether somebody has a dodgy liver or something. This is, of course, nonsense. Parts of the eye do not relate to other parts of the body, and other modalities include the ear, especially when we're talking about things like acupuncture points and whatever. Parts of the outer ear relate to other parts of the body. With the classic reflexology, we're talking about the foot. The sole of the foot. Now, Wiki says reflexology, also known as zone therapy, is a complementary medical practice involving the application of pressure to specific parts of the feet, ear, or hands. This is done using thumb, finger, and hand massage techniques without the use of oil or lotion. It is based on a pseudo-scientific system of zones and reflex areas that purportedly reflect an image of the body on the feet and hands, with the premise that such work on the feet and hands causes physical change to supposedly related areas of the body. And on this page we have a reflexology chart of the foot, or the feet, and various weirdly shaped areas seem to be at random, sort of, hard to say, are related to other parts of the body, the heart, the liver, the kidneys, and so on. It says here there's no convincing scientific evidence that reflexology is effective for any medical condition. In 2015, the Australian government's Department of Health published the results of a review of alternative therapies that sought to determine if any were suitable for being covered by health insurance. Reflexology was one of 17 therapies evaluated, for which no clear evidence of effectiveness was found. Reviews from 2009 and 2011 found no evidence sufficient to support the use of reflexology for any medical condition. The 2009 symptomatic review of randomized controlled trials concludes, the best evidence available does not demonstrate convincingly that reflexology is an effective treatment for any medical condition. Later it says, reflexology's claim to manipulate chi energy is unsupported by science. There is no scientific evidence for the existence of life energy chi, energy balance, crystalline structures, or pathways in the body. So there's a basic overview of reflexology. It's very popular to this day. I think partly because, apart from anything else, it would be a nice half an hour or whatever it is of somebody paying attention to you and rubbing your feet. I guess the bottom line is, if you're paying money for this service, what you're getting is not what is promised or claimed. Now let's turn to the pages of the Boca Raton News, BOCARATON News, on Christmas Day, the 25th of December in the year 2000. And this is from Florida. Acupuncture without the needles at new clinic. Reflexology is widely practiced in Europe, Asia. And this is a story by John, and I'm sorry to this journalist, but his last name is sort of blurred out because of the heavy print. I think it's Harris. Business writer. Karen Zaratos, a licensed master massage therapist, has opened a clinic specializing in the art of reflexology. So what is reflexology? It might be described as acupuncture without the needles, says Zaratos. She describes reflexology as a system of applying pressure to areas of the feet and hands in a way that promotes circulation, balance, and relaxation. It's based on the principle that the free nerve endings found in the soles of the feet and palms of the hands that course through the body correspond to various organs and glands. As a reflexologist, I don't practice medicine, diagnose, or prescribe medication in any form. Reflexology treatments focus on the central nervous system to relax the body and stimulate the body's own healing system. The body only heals when relaxed. Reflexology gives a deeper sense of relaxation than massage. She describes the technique of reflexology as applying pressure to the hands or feet in a caterpillar walk motion. Zaratos has studied with top reflexologists from around the world. In September, she was in London, England, where she studied with Anne Gillanders, president of the British School of Reflexology. I'm now contracted with her to run the American counterpart of the school and teach reflexology. Reflexology has been practiced in the US for only 50 years. Its chief practitioner was Eunice Ingham, who founded the International Institute of Reflexology in St. Petersburg. But reflexology is widely practiced in Europe and Asia, says Zeranos. Many of my clients are world travellers who have learnt of its benefits while travelling abroad. She says, the practice dates back to ancient times. There's a famous hieroglyph dating back to 3000 BC that shows two Egyptian physicians, one holding a patient's hand and another holding the foot, in a reflexology treatment. Samantha says she got her first knowledge of reflexology when she was suffering with a herniated disc. It really helped my back, she says. I've seen the wonderful results from it, and I honestly believe in it. She has taught anatomy and physiology at the community college since 1995. She also provides continuing education for massage therapists and physical therapists, which is required for maintaining licenses. Assisting Zerantos at the clinic is Brandy Lane Glenos. Another licensed therapist is on call to provide aromatherapy and facials. Foot reflexology treatments are usually scheduled for 1 hour, while hand and foot reflexology treatments are scheduled for 1.5 hours. And in a little box here, the Reflexology Clinic at a glance. Location and address. And there's an address there at the Royal Palm Plaza. Hours by appointment. There's a phone number. Indeed, there is an email address as well. A fax number. That dates it. And, a website. Here we go. The website is thereflexologyclinic.com. However, these days that website relates to a reflexology business in Arizona. So I guess the URL was up for sale at some time or other. But this site, and the practitioner here is one Ralph Ritchie, NBCR, clinical reflexologist, has a page here. What is reflexology? The national definition of reflexology. Reflexology is a protocol of manual techniques such as thumb and finger walking, hook and back up and rotating on a point applied to specific reflex areas, predominantly on the feet and hands. These techniques stimulate the complex neural pathways linking body systems, supporting the body's efforts to function optimally. And would you look at that? There's a picture here from ancient Egypt, apparently. Someone manipulating somebody's toe. But it looks very fresh and clean, so maybe it's a reconstruction. Reflexology is not a form of massage. I beg to differ. Reflexologists do not diagnose or treat specific illnesses. Reflexologists do not prescribe medication, nor do they recommend altering medications. Reflexology is a clothed modality. Only the shoes and socks are removed. Reflexology is intended to ... relax and de-stress the client. Probably does. Encourage homeostasis, balance in the body and its systems, whatever that means. Stimulate circulation and the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the cells. That I'd like to see. Encourage the body to heal itself by working on areas of emphasis. Now, it's interesting scanning down the list of returns here, and I'm in Google newspapers. The stories are universally positive, or simply reporting on the fact there's a new clinic open somewhere, or somebody's had luck with it, or somebody swears by it. For example, here's a headline from 1999. Reflexologist happy clients say a good foot massage can cure what ails you. Now let's see what this has to say, and this is by Ivy Moore, Items Features writer, and this comes to us on the 24th of January from a newspaper called The Item, and it appears to be from South Carolina. "Oh, my aching feet" is a phrase heard so often it's almost cliché, and most people believe that there's nothing as effective as a good foot massage to relieve foot pains. But many people, reflexologists and their clients, find that working with the feet can help or even cure aches in other parts of the body as well. They believe that reflexology even works on internal organs to prevent and alleviate disease. Reflexologists believe that there are reflex areas in the feet and hands that correspond to every part of the body, and that these parts of the body can be affected by stimulating the appropriate reflex areas on the feet and hands. The practice evolved from a European system called zone therapy, by which laryngologist, Laryngologist, and that word means a medical doctor specializing in diagnosis and treatment of disorders of the larynx. Okay? Dr. William Fitzgerald introduced to America at St. Francis Hospital in Connecticut in 1913. Fitzgerald used zone therapy to induce numbness and alleviate symptoms in specific parts by applying finger pressure to certain points on the hand and mouth. In the 1920s, physiologist Eunice Ingham, pictured on this page, and indeed if I scroll down, there's a picture of the woman herself, mapped the pressure points on the feet and hands that correspond to specific parts of the body. Aha, that's interesting to know. And indeed here is an image of the left and right foot with little points highlighted. Sciatic nerve, I could use some of that. Lumbar, small intestine, kidney, spinal vertebrae, pancreas, stomach, solar plexus, thyroid, throat and tonsils, neck, sinuses, eyes, back of head, ear, joints of the shoulder and arm, heart, adrenal gland, heart again, okay, hip joint, colon, thigh, knee. So is she to credit for making all this up? I mean, for labeling different parts of the foot. That's interesting. I think this article is a keeper. According to the American Reflexology Board, in Littleton, Colorado, there are now more than 25,000 practitioners of reflexology in the world. There are no licensed reflexologists in Saunders. Local licensed massage therapist Jenny Disher says she does a lot of foot massage but no actual reflexology. I do keep a reflexology chart in my office, though. There's a lot to it. When I'm working on a client's feet, I notice the stiff areas. When I ask them what body parts are bothering them, I find they correspond. Disher also uses reflexology on herself. I have one of those vibrating foot tubs with knobs in it. I really press down, concentrating on that particular pressure point on the corresponding area. That's bothering me. I have a lot of lower back pain, and about 20 minutes of reflexology really does help. You can actually work on things that are wrong with you. If you're in tune with your body, there's a lot you can do. Reflexology can help with internal organs. I use it, along with lots of water and cranberry juice, when I think I'm getting a bladder or kidney infection. And the combination helps. Kathy Collins, a psychiatric nurse and licensed massage therapist in Sumner, says that reflexology was part of her therapeutic massage training. I use it as a diagnostic tool. If I feel a tight point on the foot that relates to the spine, for example, I ask the client if he's having lower back pain. Most of the time he'll say yes. If he's having shoulder pain, I concentrate on the part of the foot that corresponds to that. Since she's not a licensed reflexologist, Colin does not practice the treatment exclusively, though. For example, if a client is having back problems, I focus more on the soft tissue area in the back, whereas a reflexologist would not massage the back, but concentrate entirely on the hands and feet. Both Disher and Collins say that they always get favorable comments from their clients who receive foot massages, though both also say they have clients who are ticklish. That would be me. Or will not allow their feet to be touched for other reasons. Reflexology doesn't just deal with the feet, though. Practitioners also believe that the hand contains reflex points. According to ancient medical books, health is dependent on balance and harmony. In order to maintain or restore these channels of energy must be allowed to flow from all areas of the body to others. Reflexology is alleged to break blockages, thus concentrating energy and the body's own healing powers on a specific area. It has been compared to the Chinese practice of acupuncture, the major differences being that reflexologists work only with extremities and do not puncture the skin, while acupuncturists insert needles in reflex spots throughout the body. And here's a little thing at the bottom here. It says, see feet, page C2. I wonder what that is. I better have a quick look at page C2. And, oh yes, on C2 the story continues. I won't read it all. It actually goes on longer than I suspected. But what's this? I'll read the first little bit. Because reflexology is considered alternative medicine, many traditional healthcare practitioners do not believe it to be a viable treatment. This attitude may also be perpetuated by the claims that some reflexologists, to prevent grey hair, develop ESP, extrasensory perception, and accomplish exorcisms. What? That's a bit of a weird turn. Okay, well, why not? And finally, here at the end of the item, there are various contact details that would have been in effect 26 years ago. Well, there we are. A brief look at some of the items over the years, and there are many, 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 many more items mentioning reflexology. And just as a quick matter of interest, I'll type in the word skeptical into the search as well. And there are some results. I won't go into them, but it might be worth looking at another day. But I suspect most of the results would say something like, some people are skeptical, yada, yada, yada. And a quick look at one particular article says, one paragraph says, she, however, was open-minded. While somewhat skeptical about the specific reflex relationships, she was at least convinced of the benefits of massage. Yeah, that's what I would have thought. I don't think we'll find many items here that are outrightly skeptical of reflexology. Reflexology, one of the great quack modalities out there at large in our society. And you too can find out about other quack modalities from around the world if you visit various online archives. And as we keep saying, if you're in Australia or you'd like an Australian perspective, you can visit Trove at trove.nla.gov.au, put in your search, because when you do that, you never know what funny feet you might find. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast this week. Just before I go, don't forget, here in Sydney on the 4th of December at Skeptics in the Pub at the Occidental Hotel in Wynyard, downtown Sydney, come along for a recording of the Why Smart Women Zone podcast with Annie McCubbin from the Why Smart Women podcast, yours truly, and a lineup of very smart women indeed. Come and be part of the fun. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for episodes and show notes with links going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone on Facebook, X, TikTok and YouTube by clicking the links at our homepage, together with links to support the show financially via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of the Skeptic Zone podcast or any other skeptical organisation.